Hello, and welcome to part 2 of my interview with Dr. Joanna North, a doctor of psychotherapy, a chartered psychologist, and a chartered scientist. Last week, we spoke about the infant's brain. Its instinct for survival was very, very strong. And now we are going to be talking about the toddler's mind and the development of that mind, which is much more rapid compared to the infant's brain. So welcome, Joe. Thank you for coming back.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And lovely to see you. Perhaps you could explain to us a little bit about the evolution from the little mammalian brain, the little baby mammal's brain of the infant to the toddler.
So incredible, incredibly magical years, this movement into toddlerhood, and it's marked by all sorts of physical changes into behaviour, like, hey, I can stand on my own 2 feet, and hey, I can make sounds that make you understand what I'm saying, and hey, I can move away from you and I can be myself. I can be a little bit different. Previously, we've been so connected. We have almost moved together, Kara, mum, dad, and I. But now, there's something magical happening. I can move away on my own. And so this movement, this incredible movement into development of the self, in which the child is finding that they can do things on their own gradually.
So things like kicking and drawing and running, jumping, skipping.
Yeah. Well, isn't that all of those things, which is quite advanced toddlerhood, but initially that taking steps and moving those legs and controlling those legs. And if you think that probably by the age of about 3, there might be some toilet training, which is sort of mercifully, parents do that a lot later now. When I was a mom of a toddler, we were thinking that 2 was a good age, but I think it's way too young, really. 3 is a great age. So these are huge leaps in development. They require continuous support from the parent in regulating experience.
That's something you mentioned in the book, which really struck me, how when they do their first sort of potty moment, or when they start to drink a cup from a cup, that the the encouragement and the pleasure that the parents show the child, the baby, encourages the baby to enjoy its achievements. So achieving becomes not exactly playful, but there is something joyful about achieving these things, that it's not a pressure, you have to do it. It's like, yes, that's great. And you were talking about how being positive to your child lights up the parent's brain in certain parts of the brain, which then also lights up in the child's brain as well. So both parent and child start to feel this glow of joy, literally.
Well, that's right. And it's a sort of giving this joint attention to things. So if a child is, learns something new, what they want is attention to that. So it's not just them learning it in isolation. It's the joint attention to things that really give great enjoyment. So to both the parent and child, and that joy is a key emotion in brain development. It's a sort of a key garden of brain development. And not surprisingly, at that stage, the child's emotional states move really fast. If you watch a little child of, say, 2 for an hour, you'll see them go from real excitement to real anger to real horror to fear to the need for total engagement and holding to the need for the desire to be utterly out on their own. And the movement is so fast, and totally natural, and really the child needs that observed and understood and contained. I mean, as you can imagine, those states of it's quite an aroused state for learning, but that these little toddlers at this stage, they need a lot of help with that arousal, that sort of mental arousal, and that effort in trying, in experimenting something new. But the sort of feeling arousal and the emotion arousal, they need a lot of help with that. And very easily can tip from being exciting and joyful into out of control, which is fine. I mean, it's okay for a little while, but this sort of down regulating of these states, and the sort of management of these states, it can only be done in relationship with another caring person that chooses to observe and understand them. So I think this sort of regulation began much earlier, actually. It began in infancy, but it now continues at a rapid rate and will continue in this ability to regulate, live with and accept the states of mind as we go through life, are really what we're all doing. So
I find, I had no idea about the term regulation and self-regulation until I did the course, and it became very apparent to me that we do it to ourselves. It's almost a way of self-soothing ourselves. Like when we're in a heightened state and it feels uncomfortable, how do we soothe ourselves into a state where we start to feel calm? And as you say, at this stage of development, then it's to do with another person, a carer, a father or a mother, giving that child the attention and asking the questions. Why is it that you are like this? I can see that you're very upset. I can see it's something very difficult. What is it? Ask the question. And then, you probably would never guess the answer to that question unless you ask that child what it is. Obviously, if they can talk, you can ask them that. If they can't talk, then I suppose you just hold them and rock them and
Yes, I mean, I think you wouldn't be asking toddlers why. I think you'd be asked, that's perhaps for a much older child. I don't think we can expect toddlers to know why, and I don't think we have to know why. I think we have to be able to just make sense of and understand and attune.
I suppose we need to probably, we haven't said, because so we're saying from about 18 months to 3 years.
Yeah, 2.5, 18 months to 2.5. I mean, that's something, perhaps putting these things into words is something that perhaps comes in middle childhood, that we might want to know why. And middle childhood children, and even then their explanations as to why might not be quite accurate, or it doesn't really matter. But it's more, what really matters is that you're willing to give attention, and you're willing to support, and willing to make a good guess at what is needed, and then make a good second guess.
If the infant or the toddler can't speak, how would you guess? What would you do? How would that?
Well, it's quite, over, for example, happy times, enjoyable times that you're going to go with, but overexcitement that's becoming completely overstimulated, it's too much. You're going to just gently down regulate that stimulation. You don't really want children overstimulated.
So how would you do that?
Well, it depends. You'd talk, you would soothe, you perhaps would hold, you would perhaps particularly change the context and the environment. Because child's behaviour is context dependent. So, and I'm always saying, well, change the environment in which they are in which they are swimming. Like, the
because also you're changing the energy around the child as well. And the child will sense that.
So it's your attempt to do that, and your best guess and your second best guess, and then perhaps even your third best guess, and then your parents are scientists, they're experimenting,
Yeah.
and they're thinking, okay, that's working, that's toning things down, and then the child is, then that becomes an interactive process, and we get this sort of reliance on this kind of support from the child. I think there's plenty of room for misunderstanding little people at this stage, and I think one of the most difficult perhaps pieces of parenting that we see is parents sort of misattributing the child's behaviour. So sort of seeing a child who's had perhaps a toy taken away, and see them stamping their little feet, and yelling their little heads off, and hitting with their little fists, and misattributing that as being naughty, as being bad, as being aggressive, and really children of this age can be none of those things. If you're attributing that kind of label to a child at that age, you can pretty well tell yourself, hey, no, actually I'm going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
If you really need to be able to tell yourself, this little person is trying hard, to live their life. I'm responsible for the context around them. I'm responsible to help them soothe. Misattributing them. For example, little children of this age, they can't have an anger management problem. It's not possible. It's not possible. They can only have a mismanagement problem. So I mean, that's not a parent blaming thing. And every now and then, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. A parent is going to get that wrong, and but it's this sort of, it's really what you're able to then reflect on as a parent, and then able to say to yourself, no, this is just a tiny child, their brain's not developed, they can't, they're not bad, and then shift it and fix and reconnect with the child, and realizing their small problem.
And that to understand about the development of the brain, that they haven't yet got control over themselves.
No.
So the parent needs to help them find that within themselves, and do it for them, so that they can, as you say, regulate.
Yeah. That's right, and I think that we forget that at this stage there's a really important piece of social and emotional development, the theory of mind, that the child is starting to develop the theory that people have minds, that perhaps at about 2.5 to 3, the later end of toddlerhood, that they themselves have the capacity for certain behaviours that are separate from the minds of others, and really, parents need to have an understanding that is an incredible piece of growth, and at times for a small toddler, that would be what you see, and then mostly is some, if it's difficult, is some frustration of their little brain trying to get hold of this. Hang on a minute, because like me and my carer, we used to have the same mind. We used to like think, and it's like, now I can do something different. I can be different, and that causes something in, that might cause something from the other person, and it's a very, very enormous sense that opens up, that minds are different from one another. And that can be frustrating, that can be frightening, and it requires huge amounts of patience, compassion, and understanding from parents when their little people are apparently going crazy over the simplest thing. It's just like, well, it's big to them.
I know.
It's big.
So when they're having a tantrum, it's not, tantrum just sounds like the wrong word for what's actually going on for that little person, that they've just gone into overload. There's all these emotions happening, and they've risen, and then the lid of the pressure cooker's gone, because they just can't make sense of it anymore. So they melt down, and in the melting down is literally melting back down, and be with them to help them.
That's right. They're starting to form, and it's really interesting with the exercising of those little legs. That's feeding into the brain development. They're starting to form their own intentions.
Yeah.
I intend, like I intend to get my toy and I intend to walk over to that plug and see if this toy fits into the plug, because that looks really interesting. And then the parent's going to interrupt that. And
Yeah.
it's just like, that's hold on, something happened there to what came into my mind, and it's such a delicate stage, and I really think that really, we need to love these tantrums as remarkable.
Yeah.
But, I always say, if you've got a 2.5 to 3-year-old or 2-year-old to 3-year-old throwing a tantrum, what on earth have you got to be frightened of? Because you can manage that.
Yeah.
And I think also that what we see is that if the management at this stage, it becomes part of the management throughout childhood now. So I mean, if a child, if things are mismanaged, misattuned, misunderstood, given the wrong labels, then at this stage, you can make mistakes by all means, but continuous mismanagement will then move into the preschool experience not being regulated, and then we'll move into, it becomes a continuous confusion. And really what children start to see is what comes next. They're very good at looking at what comes next in life, and they want the sort of reliable, reliable constraints. Sometimes my carer will stop me.
Yeah, and I suppose you could think about what comes next if the child hasn't had that downtime or down regulating or a massive attention and commitment from the parent or carer. This sort of stress, the fight or flight, starts to build and doesn't ever come. It's like a thermometer going up and up. But because the brain's developing, and if the thermometer is going up and up and the brain's developing, that thermometer level will be going with the development of the brain. So the child will grow up having that as part of its makeup.
Their thermostat will be set wrong, at the wrong level.
So the importance of that down regulation is huge.
It's really important, because also what children are learning, if we can go with it and flow with it, and as I say, I'm not advocating perfect parenting, I simply couldn't possibly do that, but it is that we're also teaching children some flexibility in life. And when you get growing up, and what we know now in psychology and in psychotherapy is that the ability to be flexible in your thinking is very helpful to our mental health. And for us to be able to say, I've been thinking of it this way and it doesn't work, so maybe I need to think of it of another way, and I'm willing to go in a different direction. And I think what we're teaching little people at this age is very tiny steps towards being and learning and guided by others in a different direction. And they might not like it, and I don't think we do. I mean, adult, we might not like it, but gradually we realize, sometimes we have to look in other areas, we have to look in different directions, and it's just wonderful if we can teach. We're teaching children this flexibility. We're demonstrating that to them. If you come at children at this age with this rigid parenting, with this fixed thinking, like no, it can only be one thing. Fair enough. Every now and then the parent's going to do that. If you, I always say, this: if a child's at the edge of a cliff, the answer's no, isn't it? I'm getting a hold of you. You're coming back. We're not doing that, and it's a very quick no. But most of the time, it's kind of, well, let's try going in another direction with that. Let's guide you in another direction, and again, if you get these very rigid no's, this very fixed thinking from parents, you end up with quite a worried and frightened child, and with quite fixed thinking themselves. So we're kind of encouraging some flexibility, and again, it's about you asked me last time, you know, what would my advice be? And I said, well, you know, you really need to enjoy all of this. And I was reflecting on that bit, and I thought that actually, I think it's more than that. It's sort of be willing to engage mindfully, to look at your own mistakes and learn from them, and
Yeah.
you know, and make repairs.
Yeah. And also, you know, thank your child for showing you something perhaps about yourself that you didn't realize, or something about life that you didn't think there was a possibility, or, you know, because really it's a work in progress for both the parent and the child. It's a work in progress. And with any work in progress, there will be mistakes, and you'll have to backtrack, and you maybe have to go in a different direction.
Oh, that's absolutely right, Audrey. And you know what I see a lot of, and really, really interesting in parents today. And again, it's a really fine balance between being a sort of flexible, loving, mindful, kind parent, but also being a parent with authority, and a parent with intention to behave in demonstrably helpful ways.
Yeah.
But particularly, you know, there's a lot of that I do with parents where I'm saying, and let's see some authority from you as well.
Yeah.
Not this sort of apologetic, giving the child excessive amount of choice, asking the child too much. I mean, you know, we want children to have their own mind, we want to have their own opinions, but we need to be careful with parenting these days, because I do see it swinging in another direction, and it causes big problems because children want to feel, and they need to feel, you know, my parents are willing to think about stuff, but at the end of the day, they run this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, it's all very well helping kids be powerful, and I love to see that, but they don't and can't run the show, and it's too much for them.
I remember my friend having, when she had her kids, she just put the food down on the table that they were going to eat, and that was it, and they ate it. And now I slightly worry when the parents are saying, you know, would you like this or that, or would you like this for dinner? And it's just like, you know what, the child doesn't need to have that choice. It just needs to know that you're going to give it food and it's going to be okay.
There's room for choice.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, because that's flexibility, isn't it? But the
other extreme, so much choice.
Yeah.
Like, why, you know, it's like the parent will know what is a nutritious meal for the child, and yes, they can have it with chips or with mashed potato.
Well, also you're not going to let a child run you know, in this day and age, you know, you're going to have authority, say for example, over sugar, and we're going to have to teach children about sugar. It's so freely available, and we do them a big favor, you know, when we say no around sugar, and perhaps offer alternatives. And parents need to have authority. I mean, kids will fight that, you know. I mean, I fight people over sugar, you know, because it's such a wonderful and delightful thing for my brain, you know. But we all need to learn stop. And again, at this age, it's sort of you know, we stop children gently and in an encouraging way, and we just divert them most of the time. They don't need to learn a lesson. 2 to 3, you don't need a lesson in philosophy or good behavior. You just need someone really sensible that's going to show, hey, we're in a different direction here.
That brings up what you said in your book about, you know, children don't know the meaning of being polite, and nor should they need to. You know, being polite isn't part of a toddler's remit.
Absolutely right. They absolutely wouldn't get that, you know.
Don't need to say thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know, but later on, that's a really, really important social lesson that, you know, but toddler, don't even, you know, if you get a thank you out of a child, well done you. But
it's not the most important aspect of bringing up your toddler.
No, it's not. And perhaps I don't know, Audrey, perhaps it would be a really good point at which to, so what's important here?
Well,
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, you were saying also in the book about, you know, that toddlers are little egocentric beings, but it's okay for them to be a little dictator because they're getting into their sense of themselves, and it's, you know, they're becoming a little bit masterful of this body and this mind, you know, which is obviously very wearing and exhausting if you're being a parent that's very committed and giving a lot of attention. So on that note, for the parent to make sure that it's okay for them to take a break. And you also mention about having a playpen.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I mean, it's a sort of symbolic idea, really, isn't it? That the playpen, I know parents today really have an aversion to playpens, and I understand why, but it's a symbolic idea that temporarily you need somewhere safe to put your child while you catch your breath, you know. And in a way, there's no harm done, but you know, you don't want a child in a playpen all day, but for 20 minutes, you know, while you're becoming mindful yourself, isn't harmful. So I'm a little cautious, you know, but
less cautious than the screen.
Well, there's a point. There's a point, because in that playpen for 20 minutes, this little person is sort of feeling themselves, and they're watching mom, dad, or carer. They're watching them, and they're thinking, well, this is a little world, and this is mine. You know, this is a little world in here, and here are my things in here.
And I can stand, and I can move, and I can
stand, and I can move.
Yeah, and I can press and play and hear and make sounds.
And I'm safe. Moreover, I'm safe. And moreover, I'm even safer because mom, dad, or carer isn't going to scream at me because they're at the end of their tether. So, you know, that it's a symbolic thing, and there's all sorts of good things. It's just like, I mean, not that I'm making too much of an analogy between raising pets and raising children, but in terms of mammals, if you know, it's very good practice these days that pets, puppies are put in cages. It's absolutely considered to be great practice. You have a little cage in the house because the little puppy actually feels great in there.
It's the boundary.
It's a boundary. It's a containment. It's a limit, and it's their little place.
They get used to that feeling of security. It's safe.
Let me underline. I'm not making too much of an alignment between puppies and children, but they are mammals, and there's that sense of containment in there. So, you know, if you don't like playpens, fair enough. Then you know, another little place where you can get 20 minutes, perhaps a room where you can just sit quietly, and
but preferable to a screen.
Well, you know, Audrey, you know, we let's think about that. Let's get real, shall we? Because the fact is that what when I raised children, that we didn't have screens to show them. But what are parents doing when they put their child in front of the screen? And you've made the point quite rightly. They're taking some time for themselves. Their child will be fascinated by this screen, and they'll be incredibly occupied by what's going on. And it's great. And okay, use that screen for some space, and not it's got to be measured. You know, you can't let the child's world become that the screen isn't the parent.
No, because for me, when I think about that, and you know, let's say for example, using a playpen, even though we're not saying, you know, that they're the best things, but to have that half an hour break, for me, if I was the toddler, I think I would have more fun experiencing my body, my movements, the things around me that are crispy, and there's sound, and there's soft, and there's all these sensory things coming in, which are very important even as we get older, because we need that sensory information to make sense of ourselves in the situation. And if I think about, which is very impossible because obviously they went around when I was a toddler, because it just uses the mind. It's not embodied. And I would presume that maybe for half an hour,
half an hour,
it would it'd be worth it
mm,
for the parent or the
mm,
carer to have
mhm,
a
mm.
break.
I really think so, you know,
Yeah.
and
But
no longer really than half an hour.
but to
Um,
know the difference between the two, and to,
mm,
you know,
mm,
because, you know, it's like how to better understand a toddler's mind. You know, it's
yeah,
like, how can you
mm,
put yourself in that toddler's mind?
yeah,
Because if you think it's like you are full of life, your brain is developing super fast. And in fact, you say in the book that the only other time that it develops as quickly is when they're teenagers.
mm,
So
mm,
this is the mammoth growth.
absolutely.
And it's all about life. It's all about, yeah, sensory input, observing, feeling, you know, what happens if I do this? What will you do? It's like, if I
Yes,
walk away
exactly.
from you, are you going to let me do that? You know, you're checking, you're constantly monitoring, it's like you're kind of walking this tightrope, this wall of like, one side is here and one side is there. Which way am I going to go? If I go there, what's going to happen? So
Mm.
it's really, you know, an incredibly alive time, isn't it, if you're a toddler?
Mm. It's alive, and it's exciting,
Yeah,
and toddlers are feeling really pleased with themselves about all the things that they
yeah,
can do
yeah,
separate, and it's just the most wonderful experience, you know. And I think the most difficult thing is keeping up with it.
yeah,
I mean, you've got to keep up with that. And again, you know, back to you as a parent, how are you taking care of yourself? You know, you need to step back. You need little time to reflect on that.
yeah.
And
You talk about in your book, about, you know, this is when you can have, you know, maybe start developing a little social scene, you know, not scene, that's the wrong word, but, you know, little social, you know, you can, you know, invite someone, a little friend, to come and play where there's interaction, or, you know, so that parent can have a break, you know, just to maybe, you know,
yeah,
start to
yeah,
offload
yeah.
and share it with a little community that hopefully will be developing, you know.
Yes, we don't. Little people, but yeah, quite. I mean, you know, you could. What I used to do is we used to. I'd have my friend's children, you know, for a few hours in a day, and then the next day she or he would
Yeah,
have them back. And we didn't, you know, we didn't do that all the time, but once a week that was really great. And
yeah,
I think I probably was a stronger parent for that. Um, so I think that's a great idea. Little toddlers of this age, they're not playing with each other too much. You know, this is a little bit later, friendships become incredibly much more important. They're kind of interested, but they're basically, you know, their focus is on their next thing that
mm,
they can get over. They're not, don't, you know, again, you know, don't expect big buddy relationships
mm.
at this
This is
age.
pretty one track.
It's pretty one tracked,
Yeah,
and it's pretty much all about me.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it is the one stage of development where, you know, the child is becoming the beginnings of autonomy,
mm,
and it is that sort of, you know, it's the one time in life you can really say, like, life is all about me. You know,
mm,
if you get to 34 and you're still doing that you've got a bit of a narcissistic problem on your hands, you
mm,
know. But at
mm.
2 and 2.5, I think, you know, you go for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so how would you, you know, because they're very busy, little busy bees.
Mm,
And
mm,
you say in
mm.
your book, you know, it's a good job they're so adorable, because, you know,
Yeah.
that, you know, that saves the day. And we're back. So, Joe, we were going to talk about the importance of chatter for cognitive development. So,
Mm.
how would you describe that chatter?
Well, I would say to parents, do be chattering away to your child all the time, on a commentary on life,
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter how, you know, what you're talking about, the simplest thing of getting dressed, or
yeah,
putting on shoes, or you know,
yeah,
what just happened. because this is, all of this chatter is helping the cognitive development of little children.
And chatter meaning, not to actually keep asking questions to the child, but just to have like, a background of, look at the beautiful sky.
That's right, because at some point in this journey, the child's going to start to learn something, and that is that everything has got a name to it.
Yeah.
And so we're really helped by saying, naming, there's a bird and there's a cat, and if the more that children, you don't have to force that. In fact,
it's not a test that you're going to test them on, like, how many words have you learned today?
No, and they're not performing monkeys either. Children aren't little performing puppets that, but it's great if they will then just simply start to repeat that, and of course it's great wonderment to a parent. So I mean, this is the beginnings of the idea that the world is full of objects, and every single object has a name is enormous, and it's the beginning of talking about life. And so absolutely, chatter does matter at this age, and we help by chattering away and listening to the vocalizations of small children. So they'll have a hold of a few words. They'll have a hold of mama and papa and all sorts of things. But the sort of vocalization that they will make about, you won't have words attached to it, but they'll be attempting this. And so it's really important to acknowledge that and praise that and let children feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an image of the mother or the father or the carer driving the car, and the baby or the toddler in the back, and then it's because you're moving forwards in life, and the adult is at the helm, is driving you on, and the child is in the back as a sort of a bystander, observing, noticing, receiving this chatter from the parent, being free to add or not, being free to chat back or not, or just observe. And then that's it. And that's it. It doesn't have to be any more challenging than that.
No, but I think what's very interesting is that we know that children, as they start to develop language, they receive more, their reception of language is greater than their ability to vocalize. So that whilst you're chattering away, they will be understanding much more of that. At the same time, they're learning to use their own sets of words. Great. So this is massive, isn't it?
With no pressure whatsoever. Which is
zero pressure, lots of enjoyment, that chattering and talking and naming things. And isn't life amazing because everything's got a name to it?
And mums or dad or carers driving, and we're going forwards, and I'm safe, and everything's fine. So let's just take the last topic about how to connect emotionally to help regulate. What does that actually mean?
I think it's a lot of parenting, as I've said throughout the book, is about mirroring and children learning from what they see. And I think that we'll be mirroring to children our concern for them. And we do that in all sorts of ways, in the tone of our voice, in the language that we use, in the look on our face in particular. Again, every now and then parents have difficult things to deal with, but on the whole, children are going to feel a lot better about seeing a kind face. And have to be a happy face, thoughtful face,
even an empathetic face,
face, absolutely, or a face that says, mum's in control. I always think of it this way: if you're sitting on a plane, okay, and the air stewardess is coming towards you, or the air steward, you really don't want to see them with an unhappy face, do you?
No, that's brilliant.
I think of it that way. You want
Yeah,
to see the happy
yeah,
face,
yeah,
and you certainly don't want to see them, with a hostile, angry face.
yeah, yeah,
And we know that, again, parental hostility is going to frighten the child.
yeah,
So, if we can remember again, it doesn't mean to say, if you've got hostility and you've got difficult things to deal with, go and deal with them, but you don't expect this little child to be dealing with it with you. You have to, in some, protect them and have the intention to protect. And so we do all sorts of things that are, encoded into every society. So, behaviours such as singing songs to toddlers, action rhymes to toddlers. So, I mean, this is universal, isn't it? It's not
yeah, yeah,
they're not any particular culture. Singing songs at bedtime, reading little stories at bedtime, little actions with hands and face and feet, and so these are the way that we, as a society, we've learned to connect.
yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, I really like your questions, because really you've asking about different aspects of development. You're asking about language and cognitive development, and which is all going on, emotional development, and then and sort of the reliability of the parents, giving that attachment as a springboard to all development is
we develop emotionally throughout our lives. I mean, I'm still developing emotionally, and what you say in the book, which is very poignant, is that behavioral management is secondary to emotional connection, which becomes the management is through the emotional connection.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're very closely entwined, and
yeah,
you I think we slightly undervalue behaviour management in this day and age, and children need a lot of guidance with their behaviour, but they need it entwined with this sense of being supported. So, as adults, for example, we'd go, and if we're trying to learn something, we'd go and find a good coach. And we need parents to be great coaches. And if your coach tells you off and tells you, you're stupid, and you're not going to pay them, are you? Not going to pay them to get that. Your coach knows to treat you really well and make you feel good, and then you'll learn. And also, understanding that we take steps towards learning. It's a gradual process, and that the learning process in little children of this age is, some days they'll be switched off from learning, and some days they'll be absolutely rapidly learning and absorbing, and there's a kind of wave motion to that, and a synchronicity to that. So there's so much really for us to think about. I mean, in this day and age in psychology, we're very interested in the rhythms of life, the biorhythms of life, the natural rhythms. These deep, children are run by this stuff. Yeah. So, for example, I'll give you an example of, say, parents who might who aren't attuned to children eating at certain times that's comfortable for them, say at bedtime, or making them eat in patterns that are suitable to adults, but not to children, and then wonder why they don't get their children to sleep.
Well, I mean, you can think of children as being truly authentic, that they are probably in tune with themselves in a way more, because they've obviously got less stuff to squish them down, which we get as we get older.
Oh, absolutely.
So they are a source of inspiration and a beautiful reason to love through learning.
Well, absolutely. To love life, really, because the children are riding on the waves of the natural rhythms of life.
Yeah.
And if we can go with that, and we can ride those waves.
Yeah.
well, it does actually. No, I'm still, again, I said it last time, I don't want to pretend that there's an easy way to do this job. I think it's such a complex task, and it demands so much of us. And we expect ourselves to do so well. And I think good parents have days when they feel absolutely that they're utterly not done very well. I think those are the best parents, and then they have a review of the situation and they learn from it and they come back and start again. I think that's great parenting. So, I mean, when I work with families, we have days when they're completely falls to pieces. They're all arguing with each other, and it's just like, well, what can we learn, and what's this telling us about what we all need, and what's right, and not.
It's not smooth sailing on that sea.
It's really not, and I really think that one of the we do ourselves no favors, by implying there's a perfect design. I'm always saying it in that book. There's a designer model for parenting. I really want to get past that. Life's pretty messy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there's no, there's an example of a woman who had a baby. She had a very high powered job. She had 35 people that were working for her. She was able to rally them up, and then she had this little bundle, and it threw her. Yes, it's the hardest job in the world. Underpaid. There's no payment for it.
Well, deeply undervalued.
And undervalued, and probably underestimated as well. I mean, when I think about the people that I know that have had kids, and the kids have turned out, really, really okay, I just think, gosh, hats off. So in awe of parenting.
Well, that's a very good point. We have to remember too that children are incredibly resilient, and they're always trying to find the best way to survive. And we have to help them be strong, and we help them be strong by putting in great support,
and showing how to navigate together. How none of us know how to do this. We're all doing this together. Let's navigate let's try this way. Let's see what happens. We're going to explore together, and maybe it will work, and hooray. And if not, okay, let's try something else.
Exactly.
We're not going to beat ourselves up about it.
No, absolutely. That we really are needing to encourage parents and families it's a big experiment. And if it doesn't work, well, then you need to be trying something else. We're all scientists of our own lives, really.
We are. We're all our own little research laboratories.
Yeah, that's the one.
So thank you so much, Jo, and I look forward to part 3. It's an exploration into the unknown.